So, quick recap of what I finished the video on last. I said that LeBron James shot 9 of 23 on November 4th this year. It was 51 days before the Warriors and the Cavs played the first time this year. Cleveland equals 51. LeBron James equals 51. Cleveland Cavs equals 51. The city of Cleveland hasn't won a sports championship in 51 years. Talked about the number 44. Antonin Scalia died on the 44th day. Antonin Scalia equals 51. Also, the date numerology of the 44th day was 51. Then you had John Hot Rod Williams, a former Cav who died this year. He died on December 11th, which was 5 months, 22 days before the NBA Finals, which I talked about goes with Antonin Scalia's death and whatnot. Also, this year, though, is the Warriors' 44th season. They just won their 44th consecutive home game. Lots of 44 connections to the Warriors. The NBA Finals began on a date numerology of 44. Also, though, King James equals 44 in Gematria. LeBron's nickname is King James, so interesting. It just makes me wonder if this, like the death of Hot Rod Williams and some of these other deaths, are sacrifices to be in the finals or something along the lines of that. Seems like it happens every year. In tons of big events, there's always a bunch of sacrifices involved. But anyway, the word sacrifice, if you write it out, it equals 46. Just like Chicago. I mean, a super ton of Chicago coding to the NBA, also to the NFL this year, also to Back to the Future, lots of it. But if you write out the word 51, 51 also equals 46. So 51 completely tied to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Also interesting that it adds the 46, so it's connected to Chicago. Also, the same day that David Blatt got fired, Steve Kerr came back on the 44th game of the season. It was on January 22nd, which was 122. And I mentioned a lot about the 122 stuff, but interesting, 122 is also the 22nd day of the year. LeBron James went 9 of 23 this year, 79 days before January 22nd. The 22nd prime is 79. There's some other 22s I'll mention as I go along, but September 23rd of 2015, when Pope Francis came to the White House at 9:23 on 9:23, came to America on his 923rd day as Pope. It's a span of 121 days, just like Warriors equals 121, Revelation. The Warriors just beat the Thunder by 100. They won with 121 points 2 times in a row. The second game even added up to 227, like the last time that they played them on February 27th. The Thunder also went into that game, and they had blown a 22-point lead to the Clippers the night before, and then they played the Warriors on 3-3, so 3 plus 3 plus 16 equals 22. The date numerology of 3-3 was 22. It also just so happened to be 22 days after Monty Williams' wife died. Monty Williams, the associate coach for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he's 44 years old. His wife died at the age of 44. And look at his full name in Gematria. Tavares Montgomery Williams, 113, 113. I mean, oh, the odds. His wife also just so happened to die exactly 113 days before the beginning of the NBA Finals. So his name adds up to 113. His wife dies 113 days before the NBA Finals begin. And once again, the day the NBA Finals began to September 23rd, a span of 113 days. Monty Williams finished his career as a Philadelphia 76er. He only played 21 regular season games that year. Also played 10 playoff games, so his last season was as a Philadelphia 76er. Like I said, Philadelphia is connected to the Warriors. Oakland equals 31. Curry equals 31. Lots of other stuff with the 31. They picked up Varejao 31 days after David Blatt was fired, after Steve Kerr came back. But Oklahoma also equals 31, so interesting. He's the coach of Oklahoma, or the associate coach or whatever of Oklahoma. But anyway, moral of the story, he quit playing basketball with Philadelphia when he was age 31, and he also played 31 games that season. And then the last regular season game was even to the Chicago Bulls. Also, in regards to Cleveland being in the NBA Finals and whatnot and not winning for 51 years, one of the reasons that they didn't win the NBA Finals or even get to the NBA Finals was because of a play from Michael Jordan called The Shot. And it was in Game 5 of the first round of the 1989 playoffs. So interesting, it was Game 5. I talked a lot about the 11 connections. The fifth prime number is 11 and whatnot. But Cleveland had won 57 regular season games that year, and then the Bulls knocked them out on 5-7. Michael Jordan even scored 44 points in that game, and he hit a shot over Craig Elo. Craig Elo in Gematria equals 51, just like Cleveland Cavs, just like LeBron James. The date numerology was even 5 plus 7 plus 89 equals 100. 51 the big way equals 100. Another big NBA death this year was the death of Moses Malone on September 13th. And Moses Malone, famous for being a Philadelphia 76er. Lots of other Philadelphia 76ers died within the last year, 2015. There was a ton of them. I made tons of videos on these, especially in the month of December. I made a whole bunch of videos about 76ers dying. Dolph Schayes, Moses Malone, Daryl Dawkins. I mean, there was a whole bunch of them. Harvey Pollack, the oldest NBA employee ever, who was the employee for the 76ers and whatnot. But Moses Malone in Gematria equals 131, just like Super Bowl, just like championship, just like the 13 and 31 mirrors, just like the day that the Warriors' home game win streak began, 131. But also, in regards to Moses Malone, he finished his career playing for the San Antonio Spurs, which, interesting, in Gematria, San Antonio also equals 122, just like Pope Francis, just like Golden State. Right now, San Antonio only has 9 losses, so they still have a chance to tie or beat the Chicago Bulls' 72-10 record as well, just like the Warriors. Although the Warriors have a better record and they've got a lot more attention. Anyway, Moses Malone finished his career with them on 12/27 of 1994. He only played 17 games. Just sticks out to me because Michael Jordan came back later in that season. He came back on 3/19/95, and he only played 17 regular season games. He came back on the 66th game. He wore number 45 for 22 games, and on the 23rd game, he switched back to number 23. In this game, though, Moses Malone's last game ever, it's a famous buzzer beater. If you type it in on YouTube, Moses Malone buzzer beater, it'll pop up. He made, I don't know what quarter it was or what, but he made an awesome, like, from the opposite free throw line buzzer beater. It just sticks out because he is playing the Charlotte Hornets. Michael Jordan owns the Charlotte Hornets. Steph Curry's dad is Del Curry, famous for being a Charlotte Hornet, even works for the Charlotte Hornets right now. So they also won by 11. Also interesting that Steve Kerr played for all of these teams, except, well, he didn't play for the Hornets, but he played for the Bulls, he played for the Spurs, he coaches Golden State, he even played for the Cavs. Kerr, in the second three-peat of the Bulls, Kerr won a title with all three of them, and then he was traded or whatever to the San Antonio Spurs, who won that next year. And that made him the only player, I guess he was tied with another guy named Frank Saul, for having won 4 consecutive NBA titles other than the 1960s Boston Celtics. The other guy was Frank Saul. Frank Saul in gematria equals 31. I also talked about Steve Kerr's dad in a previous video. He died 31 years ago last year, so they won the NBA Finals 31 years after his dad died. I can't even remember it all. There was a lot of 31 connections to his dad. Anyway, Steve Kerr played for the Cavs in his second season. I can't remember. I think he played there for 5 seasons, maybe 4. Can't remember what it was. I know in his last season he only played 5 games, though. But his first game as a Cleveland Cavalier was on November 3rd, 1989, against none other than the Chicago Bulls. The date numerology adds up to 122. And interesting, this was right after the Michael Jordan beat the Cavs in the playoffs on The Shot on 5-7 when they had won 57 regular season games. Steve Kerr's first season with the Spurs and the 4th consecutive championship as a player, he only played 44 games. His first game with the Spurs, he was also 33 years old, 131 days. So 33 and 131 days old. Interesting, the Chicago Bulls' 44-game win streak started after a loss to the Orlando Magic. They even lost scoring 99 points. But if the Golden State Warriors beat the Chicago Bulls streak and they get 45 wins, it'll be against Orlando. So the Bulls' last home game loss was against Orlando, and then the Warriors can beat the streak by beating Orlando this year. Also interesting that the next home game will be against Utah for the Golden State Warriors. Just interesting because in the Bulls' second three-peat, they played the Seattle Supersonics, then they played Utah, then they played Utah. So just interesting, it would be their 46th win in a row at home. Chicago equals 46. Utah Jazz even equals 113 in gematria. And I know that it seems backwards and whatnot, but just interesting, it would be, if the Warriors won the finals, it would be their second finals in a row, the back-to-back, So maybe if they do go to the finals, it won't be the Cavs. Maybe for whatever the reason, the Cavs might just get knocked out on a date with 5-1 or something like that. Even on 5-10 of 2016, the date numerology of 51. Not for sure, 5-1 of 2016, the date numerology is even 42, like LeBron James, so it could make sense, but who knows? It really doesn't matter. Regardless of the outcomes, these are some days to watch out for, even if the Cavs are winning or whatnot, for the Cavs at least. If the Cavs don't make it to the finals, I think the Warriors are going to play the Hawks, only because Hawks equals 32 in gematria, just like Utah Jazz equals 32 and 113. Atlanta Hawks equals 32, also 131, just a big number connected to championship and whatnot. There's also been some significant games with the Hawks and the Warriors this year. Also, if the Warriors don't make it, my guess would be that it's going to be the Thunder versus the Cavs, especially with the Monty Williams and the Aubrey McClendon deaths and whatnot. Most likely they would be the sacrifices to get them in there. Maybe even like a little repeat of the Cavs versus Oklahoma City when LeBron lost the finals. But I don't know. I still think that it's going to be the Warriors who win it all, especially if they beat the 72-10 Chicago Bulls. It just wouldn't make that much sense for them to lose. Everyone can say, well, everyone expects them to win and blah, 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 but everybody expected the Bulls to win when they were 72-10, and the Bulls won, so. Who knows, we'll wait and see. That's just my thoughts on it right now. We'll just keep watching it, see how it develops and whatnot. Just super interesting how it's connected to the 923, and, 923, there's something super special about it in regards to the Pope. You know, Pope Francis even met with the 44th President of the United States on that day, but have a good night.